Good morning. Hello, everybody. Hello, hello, hello. Hello, Maureen, Linda, Rachel, Johnny, Kia. Hello, friends. Hello. Flora's not done. You may end up hearing banging, but it's almost done. I'll definitely take a picture when it's finished, but hello, my friends. Hello, Eleanor. How was everyone's yesterday or last 4 days? Because I didn't see a lot of you even on Monday night, so. I am going live this evening. But that's going to be like a panel thing. It's not going to be like a live like my normal lives. So I haven't seen you guys, so I wanted to hang out. Generally afraid of SCOTUS today. Yesterday was any indication of how they feel about human rights. Today will be scary. Thank you. How to like processor concept of statelessness. How about the gnome story? Yeah, that's wild, huh? So, Shawnee, I've actually been talking to a lot of lawyers about it. Part of the problem, it sounds like, and again, I in no way think that, no way agree with the decision, but it sounds like there were problems with the way that the law was written, and that's how they got around it. Which doesn't make it any less dangerous or scary, but oh yeah, the next South Park episode is gonna be funny in regards to gnome for sure. Morning, Silver. Hey, Carpenter. Fight, fight, fight. Right. Gotta keep fighting. But yeah, that doesn't make it any less dangerous of a decision. But I've actually been talking to some lawyer friends who are running for Congress, and they said we need to do a better job writing, like people in office need to do a better job writing laws, because that was one of the biggest problems with that was the way it was written was made it possible for an 8-1 decision. Morning, Aaron. I don't know why Colorado didn't get that either. It is frightening, though. The other thing that I'm interested to see about is what tonight's announcement is. Yeah, Trump has an announcement tonight. I don't even want to know what it's about. Your spouse was let go from her job yesterday. I'm sorry, Silver. That sucks. Yeah, our 2 more weeks update. That will end up being 2 more months. Yep. I don't think it'll be 2 more years. And the reason I say that is I don't think our economy can handle 2 years of the Strait of Hormuz being shut down. Hey, Paige. Obama, our allies, probably both. I mean, Trump and what's his face? Rubio are blaming NATO for a lot of things right now, so it wouldn't surprise me. Saw 429 gas outside Pittsburgh today. Yep, the average is over $4. If you've got diesel, that's even worse. It's even worse. Car industry is about to implode. Yup. Really is. I mean, the whole economy is about to implode. Because no one realizes that the only people buying stocks right now are the ultra wealthy. Trump will leave with no accomplishments for the effort. Nope. And somehow his people will say that they did something. That's the funny part. Is his people are going to be like, they're never going to have nukes again. Like, yep, sure. Good luck with that. Oh yeah, no one's going to be able to afford a car. What will MAGA say when it implodes? That's a good question. Oh yeah, he pulled a... Yep. Lines for gas at Costco yesterday were ridiculous. I bet. I bet. $363? Dang, there you go. Gonna blame Kamala's laugh, probably. We'll see, Scott. They're being... It's getting really weird. Just happy baseball season has started, so I have another outlet to switch off. Started finding myself getting unreasonably angry at little things because of how things are going. That's fair, Philip. I feel you on that one. I feel you on that one. Like fully feel you on that one. Scott, did you see Rubio's interview where he was talking about NATO? It was wild and ridiculous. Or I should say, did any of you see Rubio's interview where he talks about the idea of leaving NATO? And the funny thing is, he's the one who wrote the law that made it so like it would require 2/3 majority to leave NATO. Like he is the reason that the president can't just leave NATO. And now he's talking about leaving NATO. Your bingo bet is taco. Could be right. I mean, that's the problem, right? Which is why I think it's hilarious that people end up listening to what he says about anything, because no one in this administration has kept a consistent message in any way, shape, or form. Like not one message has been consistent. The only consistency they have is inconsistency. I These are one of the things. I wonder if RFK's brainworm has spread to everyone else, because that's the only thing I can think of as to why they are being so like demented. You know? I really think that the brainworm just worked its way through. I mean, we got JD Vance, we got Marco Rubio, like pretty much the entire administration like is has lost their minds. Let's just go with lost their minds. That's the easiest way to talk about it. Guys, don't forget tonight is the panel. They have some kind of Pinocchio disease. They never had much of a mind to lose. I mean, that's fair. But it's too recent. That's true, Aaron. True. We could be right. Rubio did something. Hey, Courtney. Rubio did something. Biden ended up signing it, but Rubio is actually the one that made the law to make it very difficult. Like the president can't pull us out of NATO. The Congress has to, a 2/3 majority of Congress, or at least the Senate has to. Good morning, Moody. How are you? He's been saying it for weeks now. Yep. He has. Good morning, Heidi. Oh yeah, Rubio's lost his mind. But again, I think they all have. It's just, it makes no sense. None of what they're doing makes any sense. It doesn't even make sense to their own party. Hello, Linda. How are things in Ireland? This is April Fool's. That's true. It is April Fool's. And we're probably going to get an April Fool's. You thought we were going to be leaving? Oh, April Fool's. Flopping around in his size 19 shoes. Yeah, that was funny. Also, the judge being like, you can't build your ballroom without Congress approving it because the president doesn't own the White House. That was funny too. I liked that one. I appreciated that. It was hilarious. I'm sure lots of ketchup was thrown last night. Probably. Yeah. I really wish they'd made that determination before the East Wing was. I mean, they didn't have a chance. He didn't wait for anyone's permission to tear it down. He just did it. Like, it didn't even have time to go to the courts. But I hear you and agree with you. Good morning. No, Lori, I think they've lost their minds. But what's about the bunker being built under the ballroom? I don't know. Got lost in project mode and didn't realize what time it was. You're good, Summer. Good morning. He's trashing everything in the White House. Yes, he is. Yes, he is. No, it is not. What is NATO, Galen? What do you think NATO is? What is the purpose of NATO that makes you think that it is a relic of the past? Hey, Ash. What does NATO do for us? A lot. Do you understand how a mutual defense treaty works, Deb? Hey, crazy. What's up, Jeremiah? It absolutely is mutual. The fact that you're saying it's not mutual means you don't know what a mutual defense treaty is. It 100% is mutual. Nope. That is not what NATO is for. That is not the purpose of NATO. So that is why you think it. No. Again, you guys don't seem to understand how mutual defense works. It's not my opinion. It's a reality. Again, this is not a... I know exactly what I'm talking about. The purpose of a mutual defense treaty is mutual defense. So the idea that if you attack one, just like Ann said, if you attack one, you attack all. It's to protect everyone. If the knowledge that if you attack anyone in NATO, you may have to defend yourself from all of NATO prevents countries from attacking. Ash, thank you for the nuh-uh. I appreciate you. Correct. NATO is defense, not offense. Thank you, Owl. Stop. We are NATO. You're not help NATO. That's not how it works. Gerber baby. Something about that name just strikes me as apt. You can't. It's not helping. We are NATO. We are, and the EU is, and a bunch of other countries, and the UK. It's not. It's not. It's not. Hey, Shell. Yes, this administration is the most corrupt in all of history. Yep. Definitely all of United States history. I think there's argument depending on it, depending on how you look at it with world history. Even thinking about it. It's fair. Thank you. Thank you, Owl. Thank you, all of you. Guys, if you wouldn't mind, please tap in that nose. It helps push it out to more people, as well as joining the fan club, sharing the live. It helps push it out. For those of you that are here, just so you know, 6 p.m. Eastern today, I'm doing a live panel with 2 people that are former intelligence. One former CIA, one former counterintelligence. Linda, thank you. Thank you for the $9.99. I appreciate you. No, worst administration ever. Like, worst. We should have left NATO years ago. That's a dumb statement, Chris. You obviously don't know how defense works. It's been the most successful treaty that the United States has ever been a part of. They are all corrupt with power, and the only difference now is they aren't getting along. Nah, I disagree with that. Goodbye, NATO. You can't just say goodbye to NATO. It's not how it works. Literally been the most successful treaty ever. Neither do any other country. They only care about themselves. Do you understand how mutual defense works, Chris? Do you understand the purpose of a mutual defense treaty? That is true. Our leaders used to get elected and then go to work, and now they get elected and start campaigning. That is true. Can't argue that. What? Hey, Lily. They're isolating us and making us more vulnerable to it. If we left NATO, yes, that is what would happen. Yes, Lily. Oh, did they? I'll unmute them. You are correct, Lori. I had no doubt that you knew what NATO was about. Community people can come up.
Good morning.
They asked us for help in Kosovo, Libya, and countless others. Nope. Nope. That's not. Nope. NATO didn't. Nope.
Good morning.
Again, NATO is a defense treaty. NATO is a defense treaty. It has nothing. No. The only time that NATO defense has been enacted is 9/11.
NATO has been around for 80 years. It is the most successful defense treaty in world history. The key to NATO is Article 5, which I can absolutely guarantee that the people criticizing NATO have no idea what Article 5 is, nor do they understand the obligations of a treaty. Article 5 is the mutual defense part of the treaty. It has only been invoked once, and that was after 9/11 to do what? To come to the defense of the United States. All NATO countries did. Secondly, the president, despite his blathering, has no authority whatsoever to take us out of NATO. I refer you to the Constitution of the United States. A treaty is to be treated as law. Only Congress can take us out of NATO.
And again, Marco Rubio actually got a law passed to make it even more difficult. After the first time this man tried to talk about getting us out of NATO.
Oh, Chosen One's here. He can always be counted upon. Chosen One, what do you mean by nope? Is that the same as nuh-uh?
Probably. He
I wonder
does what
how
he
long this is
wants.
gonna take.
This is, again, he tries to do what he wants. Absolutely does. NATO absolutely does a lot of stuff for America. Again, you obviously don't know what mutual defense is. Yes, a ton. It has protected this country from, I feel so safe knowing that I'm protected. You aren't protected by Canada, James. You are protected by NATO. You know, the only country that has ever had to enact Article 5 is us, the ones who think we're so strong. No, NATO is absolutely worth shit, James. Again, thank you for showing you don't have a clue. About time we leave. Why? You don't like defense? You don't like the idea of mutual defense? Do you even know what mutual defense is?
If Chosen One doesn't want to engage in an actual
Oh, I don't care about
conversation, they can
him.
try again tomorrow. And all these other people that keep coming in here, would you have had that same energy if nobody would have done anything after 9/11? Just remember that. But then I forget you guys don't know what you're talking about anyway.
Oh, the ignorance is truly startling. They have no, yeah, we keep bringing up Article 5. Mike, do you think any of these dum-dums know what Article 5 is? They have no clue. They also have no clue what a defensive treaty is. They have no clue what NATO is. They have no clue when NATO came into effect. And they have no clue as to the effect of NATO for the last 80 years.
You just came in. 9/11 was an inside job. Oh my gosh.
Yes, I know. And the Capitol Police welcomed all the J6ers into the Capitol. Right. Continue with your conspiracy theories, dimwit.
Explain Article 5. If anyone in who is a part of NATO is attacked, they can ask for Article 5 to be enacted, which means everybody else in NATO goes to their defense.
Honestly, that's a very good question, Lucy. I would be shocked if Rubio really wants to leave NATO. He is towing the Trump line of, well, whatever today's Trump line is, and it's now 10:18. That may change by noon, may change again by 2 in the afternoon, and may change again with his bizarre speech. And I'm already going to tell you it's going to be a bizarre speech tonight at 9.
You knew? Yes, I do know that, Anne. It's still wild to me.
Yeah, and 70 million people thought the election of 2020 was rigged. I mean, there's no fixing stupid, so what are we going to do?
And 70 what? 79, 77, whatever it was, million people thought that they believed a billionaire actually cared about the working person.
Yeah, how's that working out for him?
Mm-hmm.
Not too good, huh?
Nope.
Hey, Trumpers, how's your health care bills? Looking nice? Looked at your utility bills lately? Ouch. Let alone filling up at the gas tank. Oh my.
Yeah, I don't think most people here realize that how detrimental leaving NATO would be to our entire foreign policy. Like
Not to mention economic policy, because if you cut the Europeans loose on defense, they will indeed, they have the money. They will provide for their own defense, but no longer will they march to the American tune economically either. Be careful what you wish for, folks.
That is not true, Dark Deplorable. I'm sure you believe it, but that is not true. I can 100% guarantee you that not only has your gas gone up, your energy has gone up, your electricity has gone up, your food has gone up For me, it is. I know you think it, but I can guarantee you are wrong. Everything in this country has gone up. You shop at a farmer's market, and you don't think their costs have gone up?
You seen the cost of potash and fertilizer lately? Yeah, their costs have gone up.
Farmers literally are saying that they are going, not where I go. Okay.
Where do you? I'm interested. Where is your farmers market, on the far side of the moon? Because if it's in the United States, the prices have gone up.
From all farmers, everywhere. What is potash? Fertilizer. Good morning. It's called potash. Pronounced potash. Does it matter? Like, come on, guys.
Like we
No, it doesn't matter. If you think it matters, then you're not being a part of the conversation.
And that guy, I think it depends on who you're talking about. I think you should always double check your your sources and stuff. But I mean, there's some that have come right out and just shown how much they're willing to play along in the shit that's going along, and you definitely can't trust them.
Oh, and I agree with you, Scott. I am sure Marco Rubio was absolutely willing to say what he said, knowing that they couldn't make it happen because it would make the orange one happy. 100%. Because like I said, he is the one who put together the law to make it so you would need a 2/3 majority. Like, he is the reason.
Yes, and Marco Rubio also wants to be aiding Ukraine, and he can't do that. He had to be grinding his teeth when Trump lifted sanctions from Russia to reward them for giving targeting data against U.S. troops to Iran, along with more drones for them to launch against Iran and our Gulf neighbors. And how does Trump punish them? He removes sanctions so that Putin can make more money, all the while begging Ukraine for help with defensive drone measures, which Ukraine has graciously given us. And how do we pay Ukraine back for that? We backstab them.
Can we trust the news media about the war? You should never trust anyone completely. Anyone or anything. That's just a reality. You should never trust anyone or anything completely. There is always a spin. I get mine from everywhere. Like I the way I have always understood the best way to get news is to read a lot of different sources and find out what overlaps you see. And then it's usually somewhere in between. But you should have a higher threshold for alternative media. I don't know what you mean by that. I should say, what do you mean by threshold? Higher threshold.
And I agree. I think we do suck. And that's the thing. How can you be out here screaming, talking about you? It's like literally this dude wants everybody to kowtow because he's literally got his arms crossed and he's like laying on the ground, stomping his feet and having a big ass fucking hissy fit and tantrum. And he's pissed off because everybody else was like, bro, we ain't gotta listen to you. You are not the boss of us. And people sit here and talk about they don't do anything for us. The fuck do you think they're supposed to do for us? They don't do anything. And I think that's why when you keep saying defense, like it just goes right over the top of their head. It's like it's not supposed to do anything unless something bad is happening. Like
Yes.
it's not supposed to be something that does something for us every day all year long. That's not how that works.
And that's the thing that and you see it in a lot of different places, because I remember when we had the OSHA argument, and we've had so many arguments about all of these different organizations that were put in place when things were bad, and it's because of the fact that we haven't seen the use or the need. It seemed more like an annoyance that we have finally, like, that people are finally like, or not finally, people are now like, oh, we don't really need this anymore because I haven't experienced the same problems that existed because all of these things came into place in the first place. It's like the reason NATO seems like it has no purpose is because it's doing his job, just like Kia said. If we saw NATO in action constantly, that would mean that one of the 32 countries in NATO was being attacked constantly.
The mere fact that Article 5 has been invoked only once proves the success of NATO as a defensive treaty organization. It has prevented war for 80 years on the European continent and among the major powers. That is an accomplishment.
Wait, you should require more evidence from all media. There aren't any checks and balances on any of them, to be fair. Like, supposedly there are, but let's be fair, there really aren't. That's why you need to not only research and verify things before you talk about them.
And just as a heads up, like we may not care for Rubio and we may think he's gross, but we're not going to call him disgusting. We're not going to say disgusting names like that in this chat.
Oh, and Tecton. So I think this is another problem that we've got. The UN and NATO are two completely different organizations and have absolutely, or one's a treaty and one's an organization. They have absolutely nothing to do with each other. So NATO, anytime NATO wants to do something, yes, the USA was vetoing it. But anytime the UN wanted to do something, the US was vetoing it. But NATO doesn't do things because NATO doesn't do that. That's not the purpose of NATO.
Ocean 89, I think you might be mistaking the economic agreements reached by the EU and China. I do not think there are any talks about a defensive alliance. It's many of the same nations, but they're part of the EU, which is an economic alliance, not a military alliance. NATO is military.
And thank you, Khalil. It's coming. No, it's not. And again, the rest of NATO, I mean, anyone can make a defensive alliance with anybody, but in the end, if they make an alliance with another group that counters what NATO stands for, then at that point NATO doesn't exist, because If it's not mutual, it's not. If it's not mutual defense of countries, then it's not NATO.
Which, by the way, has led to the real European disillusionment with the Trump administration. They tried appeasement for about 12 months, but when he started threatening Greenland, he was threatening a fellow NATO member, and that's unheard of. And that has caused, I think, a permanent rift within the alliance. You can't threaten a fellow NATO member with military action, and that's what the United States did with Greenland.
Morning, OC. And again, are there issues? Of course there are issues. There are lots of issues. There are lots of issues. But the one thing you do not want is NATO to go away. You don't.
Look, folks, Trump can sign all the executive orders he wants. Number one, they're not law. Number two, the NATO treaty is law because it's a treaty. Again, I refer you to the Constitution. Any treaty is to be treated as U.S. law. So Trump cannot unilaterally leave NATO. He can certainly gum up the works because he is president, but he can't leave NATO.
Yep. And that goes with a lot of things. When we say, you know, he doesn't care about the law, you're right. He doesn't care about the law, but he does care about the law. A lot of what he does, he tries to skirt the law. But in the end, most of the stuff that he has tried to do, he's lost at. Like if you look at, we see a lot of stuff that has come forward, especially the stuff that he's been able to keep going with, obviously has been front and center because some of it's pretty crappy. But he has had a lot of losses. You will be an isolate. I do not think so, Darren. I mean, you may be right. Who knows what the future holds? But I don't
We're
think that's
headed that way.
I don't think that's something you should want.
Yeah, Darren, I don't think that the North Korea analogy is quite apt. We are certainly going to be more isolated than we have been before the Trump administration. I think that's fair to say.
Yeah.
In fact, we already are, both economically and militarily.
Nobody
And I
wants
hope
isolation. Sorry, Gokia.
I hope like our friends that are in the chats on either side that are not in the US, just like I say, if you've never joined us before, I say it often because I saw a comment that said the US voted for him twice. Not all of us did. And unfortunately, the way the things work over here, I don't want to say the E word, but the way things work over here, how we choose folks, there's some issues. There's some things that are outdated.
Mhm.
And there was a lot of us that did not want that. So just like I tell everybody else, just because a country has a bad leader and their government is shit does not mean that the people are shit.
And Darren, I unfortunately think there are people in this country that want isolation.
Oh, isolationism has been a thick streak throughout American history from 1787 on.
We were
The United States has always had an undercurrent of isolationism, and it took World War II really to break us out of it. And now you're seeing the whole America First movement again, and Trump is so unoriginal, he's taken a phrase from the 1930s and appropriated it for himself with America First.
Yeah.
Except most of the people who support America First really don't know what it's all about. And frankly, I don't think the president does either, but that's another story.
Yeah. Why?
Why does isolationism exist?
Yeah, why do
Well,
people
because
like
you,
isolation?
you can date back to George Washington's farewell address where he warned us against foreign alliances. People took that to heart. Also, we were a nation. You have to remember, we were a nation formed that was protected by two oceans long before the advent of blue water navies and ballistic missiles. We were protected for 100 years, 150 years, by the fact that we were isolated from the rest of the world. So that naturally led to a feeling of isolationism. And we discovered with the outbreak of the Second World War that that was a disastrous policy. And luckily, we have prevented the major powers going. We haven't prevented war, but we've prevented the major powers from going to war since 1945. And one of the bulwarks of that has been the NATO alliance. What the most, again, we'll repeat it. Mike has said it a few times. It is easily the most successful alliance in world history.
Hey, Carrie. Yeah, I mean, isolationism arguably is what got us into made the Great Depression as bad as it was too.
Sure, absolutely economic isolationism, like tariffs. That's a form of economic isolationism. They didn't work in 1930 with the Smoot-Hawley tariffs, and they didn't work under President McKinley in 1895, which led to another depression. So they don't work, and they're not working now.
How long after we leave NATO would they? I don't. Here's the thing. There's still other deterrents out there other than the alliance. The alliance makes those deterrents stronger, but there are still other deterrents out there. We still have weapons of mass destruction.
Shawnee, we're the most powerful nation on earth. Russia can't even beat Ukraine. They are not going to go after Alaska, especially when Donald Trump's in the Oval Office and they have their very own poodle as president of the United States. He does everything Putin wants anyway. Why the hell would they fuck that up?
And yes, Welsh. Isolationism works until you realize other nations have the things you require. Yup.
Can I ask though, this is like a genuine question because like it's been racking my brain. Like why do we still think that with us being so far behind technologically than a few other countries in this world, like and there's one that's quite, has a lot more people than we do and is a lot bigger and they have better technologies with a lot of things. Why do we still think that we have the greatest like military in the world? Like we're at the point now where with our munitions, we're putting we're we put ourselves at a disadvantage. Now, I'm just like genuinely curious because like and that's like no shade to the military. Both of my dads were in the military. I have there's decades upon decades of military service in my family, but it almost sometimes when I hear people say that, it almost feels like that Americanacity and like that indoctrination where we were believed.
Has nothing to do with indoctrination. There's no nation on earth that can project power like the United States. We have the most powerful blue water navy the world has ever seen, and we have the most powerful air force the world has ever seen. That's why. And we also have the biggest, well, not the biggest numbers wise, Russia does, but half of their nuke supply don't even work. We also have the most effective nuclear deterrent in the world because we have that in the air, on the ground, and at sea in our nuclear submarines. So we can project power to areas of the world that other nations simply can't do, and you're referring to the Chinese. They don't have the power to project power as far as the Americans do. That's why, but they're catching up rapidly.
I think though, for me though, I mean, I get what you're saying, Scott, and I may be coming off, and some people may not like it, and that's fine. I don't care because this is something I've totally been like thinking about for like quite a while is that if we were so great, why were we in Afghanistan and Iraq for 20 freaking years with, and look where it ended up. If I think if we were so great, why didn't Vietnam end up being different? Like, there's just so many things. Like, I just wonder now. I think because the other thing is we look at things because we spend the most money on all of these big bad things, but then we've got this country that's over there making pretty much the same shit we're making for a fraction of the cost, and they're not as mighty and powerful as we are, and they're still doing damage. I think sometimes we think a little bit too highly of ourselves, and I think that's why we have so many people that are really falling in line with this shit that they're saying. Um, and I'm just like really just struggling with it.
Well,
I'm
and
struggling with
I
it.
think I think some of it is also perspective. So, you know, what Scott uses as a metric for our country being number one, while true, we've already learned that so many others in this country and other countries around the world uh view use different metrics as to what makes us great. It's just, I mean, to me it sounds like your metric, Kia, and Scott's metric are different. And that is, I mean, there is no like official metric out there of what makes a country great. I see both of them.
Look, we're the most powerful military on earth. And you ask the Chinese, and they will tell you the same thing. But as some people are pointing out in chat, there are areas where we foolishly spend our money. We're building very expensive platforms, and we don't have enough. We're running out of ordnance in friggin' Iran already after 4 weeks. So we should be spending a lot more building 155 millimeter shells, a lot more on building interceptor missiles, and a lot less on building brand new aircraft carriers. We're building the big fancy things without the ammunition to support them. And first and foremost, the 21st century is going to be about drone warfare, and we are woefully behind in that. So the gap between the United States and other nations has significantly lessened. We may still be number one, but not overwhelmingly so anymore. We can still project force better than any other nation, but we are behind in a lot of different technologies. And as correctly pointed out by a few people in chat, that is the number one technology that we are behind in is drone technology.
And those conflicts ended poorly because our politicians made rules of engagement that severely hamper. That is
The cost to win in Vietnam, the cost to win in Iraq, and the cost to win whatever victory, however you wish to define that, would have been so exorbitant as to be not worth it. Which leads to the question of why the hell we got involved in the first place, and that does have to do with politics. In Vietnam, the Vietnamese didn't win a single major battle, and yet they won the strategic war because they understood, as did the Afghans and as did Iraq and to a certain degree the Iranians, they understood that the way a small power defeats a big power, and you're seeing this in Ukraine, is simply not to lose. If you don't lose, you end up winning. The attacking power has to actually win. The defending power only has to hang on. And the Vietnamese proved that against the French and then against the United States when we took over the war from the French after they were beaten at Dien Bien Phu.
And I agree with what you said, Mike, because I think this is something. While I get Scott's facts, I think that is something the way I'm looking at it is different, and we'll just. I just don't agree with that, and that's okay. We can agree to disagree on that. But Mike, I think you hit the nail on the head. Because man, it's a struggle. I keep thinking about the fact like my oldest son was so close to going in. I have a niece that's actively in right now, and it's like I think sometimes we think so highly of ourselves. Like if we stop, if we like what the chat saying, the fact that why do we spend so much money on this, and people say, well, we got to keep ourselves safe. Well, if we stop going into other fucking countries and doing shit to disrupt everybody all over the world and make people stop disliking us less, maybe we wouldn't feel the need to have to spend so much money on it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think the issue is spending so much money. I think we're spending it poorly. I don't think we're spending it on cheaper, inexpensive stuff, which is the stuff that we need. We're building fancy stuff to appease, and this isn't even the generals. The generals don't want more of half the stuff that we're building. They don't want any more damn Abrams tanks. They don't want them because they know Abrams tanks are a sitting duck on the 21st century battlefield.
Mm-hmm.
They would much rather see us building defensive drone technology and offensive drone technology. But that's not sexy, and that doesn't create a ton of jobs in congressional districts. So that is the political nexus that we have with the military-industrial complex, which hasn't exactly served us well. We should be getting a whole lot better bang for our buck out of $1 trillion, soon to be $1.2 or $1.3 trillion a year in defense. We're not getting any that's an overstatement. We're getting some value, but we aren't getting the value that we should be getting out of that type of expenditure.
And I mean, a couple things I want to point out. One, the Department of Defense needs to pass a damn audit. That needs to start happening. The idea that we need to keep giving them more money and they can't pass an audit and say where their money's going is just wild. Two, it's so funny to me. Like, I'm seeing these videos all the time talking about how, we have all of these people coming out with these defenses against drones. And it's like, you just realize as you're watching that these people aren't paying attention at all to what's going on in Ukraine, because the Ukraine war has already figured out how to get past a lot of those drone defenses that American is starting to try and put money into in some way, shape, or form. And it's just like, I mean, it's causing an issue, but it's also like that's still the world that we live in, and we are so far behind. It's ridiculous. I mean, they're dealing with, what is it? Fiber line, just like completely covering parts of their country, just everywhere, because they are connecting their drones to 40 miles of fiber line so they can't be interrupted by like radio waves or microwaves or whatever.
Yeah, Dark Angel, the UK has increased they're starting to emphasize drone technology. I wish we were. I can tell, obviously, Ukraine has, to their great benefit. That has enabled them to withstand a much more populous nation and a nation that has a much larger standing military than they have. And they've managed to hold them off because of drone technology. And the other nation that is leading the way in drone technology is our primary adversary in the 21st century, and that's China.
And the crazy thing is again, been watching stuff coming from the Ukraine. The inventions that they have created using different kinds of drones, not just flying drones, is amazing. Like the stuff that these guys have created is just mind-blowingly amazing. Like, they created a ground drone that you can either connect a weapon to or is set up to drive wounded back to the, back behind enemy, like back to like hospitals and stuff. Like, they literally designed it to put stretchers in, and a person, 100 miles away will drive the drone with the person in it back. It's like, the stuff that they're doing over there is absolutely crazy, and it just shows how far behind we are as a country are.
In his first week in office, President Zelensky offered to share his drone technology with the United States, and we said no. And that was obviously a big mistake. And you might recall a couple weeks ago on your platform, I said that I really think that one of the results of this war in Iran is that the Persian Gulf, the Gulf nations are going to reach out to Ukraine and sign military agreements with them. And this weekend they did. Saudi Arabia, Oman, UAE, they have all signed agreements with Ukraine to get a hold of their technology and to invest in it very heavily. And God knows they have money that Ukraine could desperately needs.
That's exactly what we need is the UAE to start having drones so they can just wreak more havoc on the continent of Africa. That's exactly what the world needs. But Iran is the problem.
I saw someone saying they're trying to be. I'm not seeing a question from them. Did I miss something
What?
from Welsh?
No, it's not from them. It's this elbow person. The questions they keep asking every time, like when I was commenting and they were like, who defending from who, Mexico or Canada? Why do they need to spend this much money from
Gotcha.
Mexico or Canada? Somebody else is replying. They're like, so who are they defending from? And that's why I'm like, so why are you asking these questions? Are you here in good faith? If you're here in good faith, you would be engaging in the conversations and not just keep replying like with questions to everybody else's comments.
Yeah, this is about conversations. If every question that's asked of you is responded with a question, then that's not a conversation. And I mean, again, I don't know. I can't verify it's true. I've heard it from multiple people, different people though, saying that Middle East countries like are talking about peace talks, but behind doors are pushing this administration to keep going over there.
Well, certainly MBS is. I don't know about the other Persian Gulf nations, but MBS is. He's playing a double game.
Hope Zelensky gets Peace Prize. That would be funny. I mean, it probably
that would be awesome.
Yeah,
that would be oh so awesome.
Yep, I agree.
Look, Ukraine is not a perfect nation. Are there issues with some corruption issues still in Ukraine? Sure there are. But Ukraine has been one of the most noble countries that I've ever seen in the last 80, 90 years of world history in holding off an unprovoked and vicious attack from Vladimir Putin. And to see a president of the United States grovel before Vladimir Putin is one of the most despicable things I've ever seen in my life. And, you know, Republicans used to be the ones who wanted to be hard on Russia. And now we see a president rewarding Russia for giving targeting data to Iran, to giving you drones to Iran to attack Americans, and he lifts sanctions on Russian oil. What a despicable action.
And Albo, no one here disagrees with either of those. Like, we don't think we should be spending trillions on our military, and everyone here thinks that the war in Iran is an unprovoked attack. There's no question about that.
Yeah, we were negotiating with them, and then we attacked them, which, by the way, I'd challenge anyone to point out a difference between what we did with Iran and what the Japanese did to us on December 7th, 1941. The American people were justifiably outraged that the Japanese would attack us in the midst of negotiations. And that's what they did, and that's what we did.
Mm-hmm.
And Linda and Kat said on the other side, I agree about the blatant corruption. It's not hid anymore, and that's why honestly, I really struggle when we talk junk. I mean, there are some countries that are doing some things on levels, that we're not even there yet, but I just think we have a whole lot of nerve talking about most of the other countries in this world right now with the stupid shit that's happening, not just here, but the stupid shit that we're doing and the havoc and chaos that we're creating around how as we run amok around amongst the rest of the world.
I mean, the reality is anyone living in this country talking about corruption or pretty much anything else in any other country is the peak of hypocrisy at this point, because we as a country can't even take care of ourselves and our own people, and yet we feel like we have the right and authority to tell other people not only how they should live but what they should do and everything else. And it's like, so that we just need to shut up.
Stephen brings up a very good point in chat that we were getting very close to a deal on the uranium in Geneva with Iran. And once again, Steve Witkoff, as he did before the Putin-Trump summit in Alaska, completely misread the Iranian proposal and said that the Iranians aren't budging. That's not true at all. He didn't get it translated correctly, and he completely screwed that up. And now we're involved in a war. Yeah, this is it. The incompetence of this administration is breathtaking. And by the way, I agree with you, Mike. The amount of overt corruption in this administration is rather unique in the American experience. And boy, we've had plenty of corrupt politicians before, but nothing on this scale.
And Andy, you can compare what this country is doing to a lot of different things throughout history. Is it exactly the same? Of course it's not exactly the same, but you like when something is similar, something is similar. That is just a reality. This is like we're just pointing out the similarities. I'm not sure what the problem is on that. And the population does nothing. I mean, what do you expect the population to do? What do you expect a population of 330 million people to do? Especially knowing that not all of the population agree with each other.
I would agree to the extent that our population is based upon the 75 elections we've had since the 2024 election, seems to be doing a lot to right the ship. But did we do enough before? No, we didn't. Too many of us were asleep, and I think that would be a fair criticism of the American people. Too many of us ignored a first term that was a dumpster fire, and 77 million people said, that's okay, let's put him back in office. And if you want to criticize those people for doing that, I'll join you.
So not only would getting 330 million people to revote, which it wouldn't even be because a bunch of people support this administration, what do you expect the outcome of a revolt would be? And I'm asking this in like anyone that comes in that talks about revolution or revolt, I'm very interested to know how you think that would go. Like what you think would come of that. The consumer has the power. You didn't say like you said revolt. That is different. Are you talking about stop putting money in those pockets? Okay. So you say stop putting money in those pockets. Well, most of our country is barely surviving. What do you expect? How do you expect them to do that?
And I agree. I mean, do I think that we have a problem in this country with just buying a bunch of shit? Absolutely. And I definitely think that you could tailor how you make your purchases. However, the way it's set up, you're still going to have to spend money. Should you be selective about where you spend your money? I hope that you are. I hope that you think about that.
So
I know I do, but
so I'm trying to have a real conversation with you, and your response to me asking a question, pointing out a difficulty, a problem with your statement, and your response is to say, no, just do what you always do and blame everyone else. I'm not blaming everyone else. We talk about things that we need to do in a lot of different cases. This is how a conversation works. You say something, sometimes I agree with you, sometimes I'm going to point out problems with your statement, because the world is not black and white. It's not easy. It's not as easy as just stop doing this. There are realities that you have to work through. There's realities that you have to work through to convince somebody to be able to do it. If I'm going to walk up to somebody, if I'm going to walk up to my next door neighbor who is barely surviving and say, you need to stop buying food from these big corporations because they are giving money to people like this administration and causing this problem. I have to have an answer to the questions that I'm asking you, because they are going to be asking those questions. And if I can't answer them, they aren't going to listen to me. So you just saying you need to stop buying things, when the reality is we live in a world where that's easier said than done. You have to have answers to those questions. You're the one who's just doing as you always do and blaming everyone else.
HN, I understand what you're trying to get at, but I would just warn you that revolts have unintended consequences. See France, 1789. See the Bolshevik Revolution of 1917. See more modern times, Cambodia in 1975. See Syria just recently, and see just a few months ago with an uprising in Iran that led to 30 to 70,000 people being slaughtered in the streets. So revolt is a very loaded word and should be approached very cautiously. That's all I'm telling you.
Hold on. The French Revolution did not make the public prosper, which makes me know
God.
you had no
Okay.
idea
Okay.
what you're talking about. That is, for those of you that weren't here last week, Kia was talking about it a bit too. We had someone come in and they went and they made a video about me. It was wild, but it caused me to go in and do a ton of research. I'm going to be making a long form video about it, about what happens what actually happened to these countries, because there's only been like a few major revolutions, like the ones that they want, and people don't realize, like, they see now and they think that what these countries have now is the direct result of that revolution, and maybe in a very, very high level there you could make that argument. But if you actually look at what life was like after these revolutions, in most cases it was actually worse. Now, does that mean that it was not necessary? I'm not saying that. I'm saying you have to understand what the outcome is going to be, and then make a decision as a country whether that is better than the current situation. But if you go into it without understanding what is going to, like, what the realities are, then you are just, you are living in a dream world.
And by the way, Stephen pointed out in chat, good call, Stephen. Mao in 1949 taking over China, that led to the unaliving of more people than died in the Second World War.
Yeah.
Combined. The greatest prolific mass unaliving in world history. So, Be careful what you wish for when you throw around the word revolt. That's the moral of the story. Be careful what you wish for.
And again, that's not to say it's not necessary. There are times where it is necessary. But be realistic about what you're like. Don't come in here and say something without actually understanding what really happened in these countries. Because we're talking, they had one in Somalia, they had one in Albania. Like, these did not, it wasn't like they just revolted and things just magically started working well.
And I think the other difference is that would be so much worse here is look how many more weapons that people have personally here amongst the population that could cause each other so much more damage than people that may not have the same kind of access.
Yeah.
And that's, I don't think people think about that, is that fact of how many weapons, and we know what I'm talking about when I'm saying weapons, that just everyday ordinary citizens have here.
Sure, the fall of the Berlin Wall and the reunification of Germany, that was a good. It's not always. I don't know if you would call that a revolution or not. That was more of a disintegration of the Soviet Union.
Yeah.
But, there are instances of, let's call it government change, that have been very beneficial.
But and there are parts that are necessary, and some of that decides whether or not a revolution ends up, like, what the outcomes end up being after one. So there's lots of parts. Who's actually involved? Is there actually, like, what kind of plans for post are actually in place? Like, is there an actual, like, group? So like if it's just a bunch of people going in and just revolting, then it's going to be anarchy, and anarchy never ends well, especially for the people at the bottom.
Yeah, and for our friend who's from East Germany in chat, welcome. Even though this wasn't a revolution, it was a revolution imposed by a conquering power. There are other examples of a, quote, good revolution, and that would be in West Germany and in Japan following the Second World War. The United States imposed democracy, which became a spectacular success in both nations. So it's not, revolution isn't always bad, but, the overall point, the overarching point is be careful when you use the word revolt, because that has ended up worse more times than it has ended up better.
Yep.
But it's a gray area, to be sure.
And honestly, I think the way the world is right now, just where we are in everything, I think I just don't know what people, that's why I keep asking, is what do you think the outcome would be? Like, when you think revolution or revolt, what's the picture you're seeing? And this is the kind of stuff that we need to have conversations about, because just like we were talking about with the power of our military, what makes us strong, what makes us the strongest, what metrics people are using. I want to know what everyone think, what these people that think is going to happen. So what does that revolution look like? What do you think the outcome would be? Like, assuming that we win, obviously you can only guess so much, but assuming that it happens the way you think, what do you think the outcome would be? Because that kind of decides how much thought you've really put into the realities. And without a revolution, what do I think the outcome will be? It depends on us. It depends on us.
Going a little bit back to your point and to the point that Kia was making before about what constitutes military power, one of the great advantages that the United States had was our soft power And that's more important than military power. It really is, because military power, as we're discovering in Iran, only gets you so far. Soft power is how you really project power, and that is both economic and in terms of helping people, like with US aid. And we have dismantled, for no reason whatsoever, tremendous advantages that the Americans had in soft power. And, you know, when there is a void, someone will fill it, and the Chinese are rushing to fill it. And that will have implications starting in about 10 years and for the rest of this century.
Mm-hmm.
And soft power is something that we really, really led the world in, and we have completely ripped the sinews out of American soft power throughout the world. USAID, Radio Free Liberty, Radio Europe, the Voice of America, all of those things that helped get out the American message, that saved 700,000 lives in Africa alone each year, 700,000 lives. And we have given that up for what? Certainly not for money, because all the money spent on US aid was spent buying American farm goods from American farmers. And so that wasn't a waste of money. And sending HIV drugs to Africa, that wasn't a waste of money. You're saving lives, and you're building goodwill, and you're building business opportunities. And we've given all that up. For what? What has replaced it? Hegemony? Well, we're not doing a very good job at that either, are we?
And DDC, he may try and say that tonight in the meeting, that we're leaving NATO. He has no authority to leave, like literally, like. And I say this, and I know there's going to be a lot of people like, he doesn't care about the law. This is slightly different, especially considering the guy who's the Secretary of State actually helped pass a law after the first time he tried to do it, to make sure that, like, specifically regarding NATO, that it cannot be left without a 2/3 majority.
Well, Mike, are you stoned? Did you see the comment before they got the booth?
I did.
I have a feeling.
Some days I wish I was.
I was just going to say, I have a feeling you wish you were. I don't know if he's a Russian agent, and everybody around here knows me. All I do is debunk conspiracy theories, because I despise conspiracy theories. There's only one conspiracy theory I really, truly believe, and that is that Putin has some information on Trump. I think he's being blackmailed. And we do know that in 2023, the entire Epstein file was stolen by some hacker. We don't know who it was, but we do know that it had all the earmarks of a typical Russian campaign to gather information. And that would explain a lot, wouldn't it?
It would. It would. And again, knowing this man and how he perceives all of life, that makes about as much sense as almost anything else. Bought or blackmailed? Yeah, it's probably a little of both.
Okay. I had to try to remember what I was going to say. I think the other thing, though, is when we're talking about the revolt slash revolution word, I think we need to be, I think in those semantics matter, and you need to be clear about what you're saying, because do I think we need to stand up, and to a certain extent that's, are we talking like armed, or are we talking like people getting out on the streets, not just on the weekends, but like people actually taking time off from work, really affecting things,
Mhm.
doing it in a way that it's not comfortable for everybody's jobs and stuff like that, to like actually, because imagine if all those people like called out on a regular work day and actually protested, like how much more that would say, instead of doing it on a weekend, when I know not everybody, trust me, I know, because I've worked most of my jobs, I did not have weekends off, so I understand that. But I do think it's fair for us to be upset and to think that we should be feeling like we need to do something. And I think that's what these No King festivals have been. However, like I said, I would like it to see it be done more of a time than it's actively going to affect these places, these businesses and these folks that we're actively, protesting against.
JK says in chat, the EU is the most corrupt organization in the world, and then Ukraine. That has got to be the most patently ridiculous statement I think I've ever heard. They're more corrupt than Putin's Russia? I mean, are you kidding me? They're more corrupt than the Gulf states, which are handing out bribes left and right. Are you kidding me? They're more corrupt than Iran or maybe even the United States. That's patently ridiculous. Does Ukraine have a history of corruption? Sure, they do, like most nations in that area of the world. But they've lessened it immensely. And the EU being corrupt, I mean, that's just a nonsensical statement.
And I also, look, I've made many videos that say that we as Americans, Democrats, Republicans, Christians, whatever, need to wake up. I've done it myself. We also need to be careful when we say that, because just like Kia said earlier, 75 million people did not vote for this. There are millions, tens of millions of people. He won by 1.5%. In some states, he won by very small percentage points. We need to remember that this is not just saying that we need to wake up while I hear you. It's again, it's more nuanced than just people need to wake up, because that ignores the reality of why people believed him in the first place, why we're going through what we're going through. Like there's so much more to it than just it's so obvious to me, which means everyone who doesn't see it just needs to wake up. That's like saying someone who's literally grown up in the church for 60 years, just because I give you all the reasons why I don't believe in your religion, just wake up. Just wake up. Like that's not reality. It's on us to have conversations, and hopefully through those conversations convince them. It's really chipping away.
Kat asks in chat, do Americans feel angry, shame, awkwardness, shock, disappointment towards the regime in power? That's a very good question. And yes, I think most Americans do. I wish more Americans felt that way in 2024, because there was no doubt we'd already had 4 years of this guy. We knew what he was. We saw he tried to overthrow the government on his way out the door. We were warned. We were warned, and he won anyway. As Mike said, only by 1.5 points, certainly with a lot of opposition, but it should have never been that close. So do I feel shame, anger, frustration with what occurred in that election? You're damn right I do.
Yep. And I think a lot of people do. And I think a lot of people that voted for him do. Again, are we going to become best friends now? Probably not. Not for a while at least. But I'm definitely happy that people are waking up. Again, the question still comes, that the one that I will always struggle with is, are there a bunch of people that are doing the exact same thing that they did in 2020? Like, Biden won because of Trump's reaction to the global pandemic. And Like that is he probably he I don't know if Biden would have won if it weren't for that. And and literally on it feels like on a dime, they were willing to forget every crazy thing that man did 4 years later. And there's part of me that's like, did people actually wake up? I don't know. I can't say. I know we all have our opinion on it, but no one really knows. It's just it's frustrating. Yes. So yes, the answer is many of us feel anger and shame and awkwardness and shock and disappointment on a daily basis. If you come in here enough, you will see it in our conversations every single day.
Sure, we have a lot of people in chat who are from other countries and saying that they just are in a state of shock that we could ever do this. And I can't disagree with a word that they're saying. And my only answer is there's a lot of Americans who are still in a state of shock. I mean, after January 6th, and I follow politics very, very closely, and I do it in a nonpartisan way. I just work with the numbers. And I thought his career was over. I didn't think he ever had any chance of being elected president again, not after January 6th, not after having a complete dumpster fire of a 4-year administration. And it was a horror show, his administration. And not just the pandemic. Charlottesville, remember that? I mean, it was one thing after another with this guy.
So
And we apparently suffered, or at least 77 million people apparently suffered from some sort of amnesia.
And Roro, so it is not because they didn't vote my way, and anyone that's been here long enough knows that I would never do that. So there's two things for me when it comes to who I allow, at least in my friend group. One, and it's the ultimate one, which is why I'm saying it first. You need to agree with my fundamentals that all people, no matter your race, religion, gender, or identity, deserve rights, respect, dignity, and safety. If I have friends, family that are part of marginalized communities, they voted, a lot of these people voted for this man knowing what they would do to people that I care about. Nobody ever said how they voted. You're right. And that's how we got here. Maybe if more people talked and stopped going, I don't do politics, maybe we wouldn't have gotten here. Can I guarantee it? No. But us not talking ever about politics with people allowed some really, really wretched perspectives on humanity to grow into what has become MAGA. And again, I can't speak for everybody. There are some people that agree with me on where they want the country to go, but are perfectly okay being friends with people on the other side. And that's if they have the capability of doing that, then more power to them. And hopefully they can grow through that. Like hopefully some growth can happen with those friends through that. But I personally will not have someone in my close friend group that actively either voted against the safety and livelihood of marginalized communities in this country, or was willing to ignore the danger because they wanted more tax money back. That literally goes against my fundamentals. Sorry, go Kia.
Yeah, I would say I agree to all of that. And that's the thing. It wasn't a simple election, and I totally agree. The fact that folks got away from talking about quote unquote politics because it would make people quote unquote uncomfortable. I mean, it literally affected people's lives. Look at how people gain rights and stuff like that. You get all of those things, laws change because you vote people in to make the laws, to make the changes, the things that happen. So it's like we've always been affected by politics. And I think for a long time, so many people were just very comfortable with not having to talk about that, because about the fact that you support people who were open and willing to creating laws and different things that were very harmful to a lot of different mono a lot of different groups in this country, like just straight out. They were just being straight up harmful. And it allowed you to be comfortable in that stuff.
Mhm.
And it allowed you to just sit there and just act like the world was just peachy keen and everything. And I think that's part of our biggest issue. We're so selfish. It's all about me, mine. When you can't look out for everybody else, like if you're okay with just walking blindly on with blinders and not realizing that other people are being harmed, when there's other people being harmed, that means you are never, when people are actively making the choice to try to do things that are, a lot of the things we see that have been coming out now that have been so regressive against all of the policies and changes that we've made, a lot of the work that's taken decades to do, it just really truly shows you what kind of people they are.
Yeah, exactly, Kia. And I've mentioned it before, and I still don't know if I did the right thing, but I ended friendships over this. Some friendships lasting over 30 years. And I remember one person said, "What, because of politics?" And I said, "No, because of your basic morality. We're just different people, and I'm sorry, I just don't feel comfortable around you anymore." And that was not easy for me to do, and I still ask myself years later if I did the right thing. But I think I did, because somebody who shows such a cavalier attitude for the rights and dignity of other people, I guess I just misjudged them for 30 years. And they finally showed me who they were. And I just don't feel comfortable associating with them anymore. And it was no blow up, it was no major fight. I just distanced myself. And I question myself to this day if I had the right to do that. But I think I did the right thing. But am I sure? No, I'm not.
I think it was said change only happens when people are uncomfortable. Yes. That is the ultimate purpose of this whole podcast was we need to be able to have these uncomfortable conversations. We need to be willing to be wrong. And again, I have no problem having a conversation with someone who voted for this administration. My problem is the number of people that are willing to justify everything that this administration does just to still be right. I mean, again, this administration ran on the e-files being released so they could hold the people in them accountable. That was like 50% of their entire campaign. And look how many people that supported this man, once it came out, how many times he was in it and the people in his circles were in it, were willing to completely ignore or try and justify that reality. That is not how we should be treating our politicians. They should be held up to a higher standard. All leaders should be held up to a higher standard. That's part of being a leader.
Shawnee points out in chat, turns out they're all in the files. And you're bringing up an important point, Shawnee. This isn't a political thing. Yes, do I believe Trump is in the files? Sure, he's mentioned more than anybody else in the files. There may be a lot of Democrats in the files. There may be a lot of entertainers who I admire in the files. The point is, I don't care who's in the files. They should all pay the price. All of them. That's what differentiates us from being in a cult and caring about only the other guy who's in the files. Who's ever in the files should pay the price and let the chips fall where they may. Oh, well, there's Democrats in the files. Good. Let them be prosecuted. I don't care.
And Bang, I don't know. I don't see your name. That is changing dramatically. Germany alone is putting in $1 trillion into growing their not only their military but their ability to make military equipment for the EU.
Oh, my goodness. We talk about, get the Europeans to spend more. The Germans at the end of this will be spending just as much of their GDP on defense as we do. The Poles spend more and have been for years than any other nation does. They're spending 5% of GDP on their military. So the Europeans are stepping up. I mean, was Trump right in his first term and along with other presidents saying that the Europeans were not spending enough? Yes, that was a fair criticism. It's not such a fair criticism anymore. They're stepping up. The Baltic states are spending what they can spend, and they're spending a good portion of their GDP on defense. Mostly the Eastern European nations are. And now Germany is catching up. And boy, that's got to be thrilling for Vladimir Putin to have the Germans rearming. Finland and Sweden have now joined NATO, which brings tremendous capabilities. The Swedish defense industries are among the best in the world, and the Finns are the best fighters in the world.
Yep.
So,
and I know he can't talk anymore, but just because this president says something ignores completely the realities of what will happen to us for years to come. This administration has caused the cost of everything we buy to go up for the next 3 to 4 years, no matter what. No matter what. If it ended this moment without one other thing, without one other piece of arms being fired by anybody, if it ended right now, you are looking at a minimum of 3 to 4 years before you see prices going down at all, because it will take that long for output to go up, get back to what it was.
Sure. The Saudis and the rest of the Persian Gulf states have already had to stop production because their tanks that they have to hold production are filled because they haven't been able to offload on tankers. So they've had to shut down production, and that alone takes 6 to 8 weeks it's not like a light switch. You just turn the light switch on. They will have to empty out all the tanks that are holding oil. Then they'll have to get their oil back pumping again. And according to Mr. Global, and he would know, that takes 6 to 8 weeks just to get going. And the best we can hope for, if this war ended tomorrow and the Straits of Hormuz magically opened the next day, it would still mean for 2-3 years, like Mike was just saying, it won't be $1.20 more a gallon, but it will still be at least 50 cents more a gallon than we were paying before the war. And that will continue indefinitely because of higher insurance rates and everything else that goes with it in trying to get that oil out of there. And let's not forget, nobody's called off the Houthis, who can close down the Red Sea, which is another 15% of global capacity.
Yep. And all of those tankers that have been sitting in the Persian Gulf for over a month now, they will need to get refilled with their own fuel to travel, like to bring whatever they're holding out. And that takes time for thousands of ships to get refueled. They're going to be buying fuel at a much higher rate even after it ends, because that's just what's going to happen. And then it's going to take weeks for them to get to anywhere. Forget the refining and everything else that goes along. Like, we're talking, and yes, and reserves are going to need to be built back up across the world because they've released so much.
The reserves alone will add at least 25 cents a gallon. And let's not forget, natural gas is a big part of this equation too. And the natural gas damage done in Qatar, which supplies 20% of the world's natural gas, will take 3 to 5 years to fix. 3 to 5 years. So we're in for a long haul. If this war ended tomorrow, we've caused immeasurable damage. This is going to be a long haul. And for what? We're not going to get regime change. We're not going to get the enriched uranium. So what did we go to war for? Beats me.
And them, the $1 trillion being spent over a 12-year period does not mean, so you got to remember, there are a few things going on when it comes to increasing everything that they're doing. They need to build the factories to start doing it, or they need to expand some of the factories they have. So yes, they're not going to be spending $1 trillion a year like the United States, but they're also a much smaller country than the United States. So they don't need to spend $1 trillion in 1 year to keep up what they're doing. They are probably going to be spending lots in certain periods of time, depending on at what point they're at in the whole process. The fact is they are putting $1 trillion in, which, when you consider what they have been spending, is massive.
I also think I was one of our Australian friends, Bev. She was saying how they're in Australia, that they're rationing gas over there already,
Mm-hmm.
at the gas station, the gas pumps, and she's like, I've never. She's like, it's just crazy. She said, I don't understand what is the orange doing, like what is he trying to do? And I was like, I was like, at the end of the day, I said, don't none of us know. I said, but we know that there are some people who are benefiting from this mightily, while the rest of us are suffering greatly. Not to mention this every other week, oh, we're going to be out of there in a couple days, or maybe a couple weeks, or maybe a few days later than that, and boom, everything goes back up. And then it's like, oh no, we're not having any talks, and everything goes back down. There's so much going on behind the scenes that are bigger than even just the e-files, because I think the e-files are literally just the tip of the iceberg. Because I think the one of my things about the e-files is we've gotten so hung up on just the e-files that we're not talking about the fact that the whole situation and how all of that SA and all of that trafficking and all that stuff is handled is so fucked in this country, and that whole system needs to change. And it's not just people who have multiple billions of dollars. And I think that's the other thing people need to understand. You're talking like just principals and coaches, and you're talking lawyers in small towns. It's not just super rich people. It's a whole nother problem. But the money, there's so much money that's being moving around behind the scenes that we can't see.
Mm-hmm. I want to say this before we get right to the end. Just a reminder, tonight, 6 p.m. Eastern, I'm going to be doing a panel with two former intelligence, one former CIA, one former counterintelligence in the Air Force. We're going to talk about Iran. We're going to talk about a bunch of stuff that's going on in foreign policy, et cetera, et cetera. If you are interested in meeting the people, I interviewed Adam Dunnigan. He's the former CIA and Marine. I interviewed him a couple weeks ago, or I posted his interview a couple weeks ago. And Alani Bankhead, who's running for Senate in Montana, I just posted her video today. So if you want to learn about them, go watch those videos before. But please be here either here on TikTok or over on the tube. It should be a really good conversation.
Yes, Stephen, you're right. I mean, $1.5 billion worth somebody did. And if we had a working SEC or a working antitrust or a working Department of Justice, we'd be getting to the bottom of who made $1.5 billion 2 minutes before the Trump speech. And that stinks to high heaven. That was obviously insider trading, and we should be finding out who did it. But do I have any faith in Pam Bondi finding out who did it? Nope.
Question on that, Scott. So with the is that something though that the next admin could come in and they could do charges, or will the time limit have run out by then?
No, they can look into it,
Okay.
and they
So
should look into it.
we need one hell of a DOJ. We need some people, good people that know what they're freaking doing and what their actual job is in these positions. That's going to be imperative.
I almost feel sorry for the next president. I hope whoever the next president is that they get 8 years, because the first 4 are just going to be cleaning up the broken glass.
Can you imagine how many lawyers they're going to have to hire in the first
I was
month?
just thinking that. The DOJ has already lost 25% of their lawyers, and that's the good 25%. The people below them, not that they're terrible people, but they're not experienced. They've lost the 25% of the people who had the most experience, and they're gone now. I mean, the mess that's going to have to be cleaned up is it would make a president's head explode, and a new president justifiably, completely justifiably, wants to enact his or her own agenda, but they're going to be caught cleaning up broken glass for 4 years. That's why I hope they get 8, because it's going to take 8 to see what their agenda is.
I think with that being said, I think honestly, if we get somebody in there, I think those lawyers that left because they had actual ethics and they just refused to be participants in this pawn scheme that's happening right now. It seems like they don't want to be used as pawns. I think they'll come back and then some. I hope, if anything, like people who are up and coming and that have aspirations of joining it, that they're paying attention and they're learning from all the shit that's happening. So that's what I keep trying to tell myself. The good thing is I hope, and the problem is we won't know. We won't be able to tell for a few years after that if people actually paid attention and did they learn stuff. Are they going to make changes that are actively going to make a difference?
I hope so, Kia. I don't know. Unfortunately, a lot of the people who had the most experience and a lot of the people who left because they didn't want to disgrace themselves, they've moved on with their lives. And it won't be as easy just to say, okay, we'd like to bring you back after 4 years. Life doesn't work that way. These people have moved on to different jobs, different careers, different law firms. And it's not just the DOJ. I mean, what about the CDC? What about building up the FDA again, making them what they once were? I mean, these doctors who've been driven out of the CDC, what incentive do they have to come back knowing that 4 years from then, a new administration can come in that's just as crazy and fire them all over again?
Mm-hmm.
That's the problem we've got ourselves in.
I forgot the part that I was going to talk with the, oh my gosh, of course. The part with the lawyers is, I think, if anything, the ones that would want to come back, they would be the ones that are ready to be able to, I don't want to necessarily say extract revenge. I don't want to say revenge, but I would see that if they do come back, because I totally agree. And that's going to be the thing. And that's just like how with our relationships with the rest of the world is, if every time we get a new president, it could change. But it just makes me wonder how many people want to go ahead and they want to fix a lot of the things that they saw happening, but they were powerless to do so. If that will at least help people who may not come back, but other people who want to join, the fact that they're going to actually be able to do something that is helpful for the country, if you want to say it that way.
I think so, Kia. I think we'll be able to hire some very good people, but I think some very good people, unfortunately, are probably lost forever now because of this. And, let's not forget, America is always 4 years away from going back to crazy town after any election. And people who want to build a career know that. I mean, people go into working for government for a lot of different motivations, but one of those motivations is it's a very stable career. It's almost impossible to fire somebody who's working for the government, and that got thrown out.
That's true. I guess I keep hoping that we haven't driven off all of the folks that are willing to fight in the ways that those of us that are just that don't know the law and are not lawyers and cannot participate in rectifying situations in that way. I hope that I hope there's enough people that are willing to fight for taking care of the things that have been so broken. I just truly hope that. Because if
Sorry,
not, we're at.
they're working on the flooring, so it's pretty loud here right now.
But I mean, we've just done, and it's like every day. Like when I saw, it's like every day when you see whatever new like hell. Like I did like some screenshots. Oh, I did get some marvelous screenshots of the memes of Gnome's husband. Those are quite priceless. But it's just like it's just so freaking frustrating every day, and it's just like, and what fresh hell awaits us every single day is what it seems like. It's like you just don't know. And I've gotten to the point where when we talk about how we used to do things and how things used to be done, I'm almost like we can't say that anymore, because all the things that we didn't never think were going to happen, they're happening right now out loud, like in front of everybody, and it's like, holy shit.
And Roro, what do I think about politicians going on break? I don't think anybody in Congress should be allowed to go on break as long as any part of the government is not funded. I think there needs to be something in place that does not allow that to happen. So the answer is I don't like it. But we already know the Republicans don't care. So, I mean, when the Republican Speaker of the House and the Republican Majority Leader of the Senate say we're shutting it down and going on break, it's not, nothing's going to happen. Like, I'm sure even if every Democrat stuck around and kept talking about it, nothing would happen until one of them brought everybody back.
Amen to that. By all means, if the government shuts down, that's a political decision. That's fine. You stay working until the government comes back on, Saturdays and Sundays too. Congress can't leave session in a government shutdown, period.
Yep.
I agree wholeheartedly. It's bullshit. This is absolute bullshit. You should not be able to go home on vacation when you're not doing your job. Like, that is not how that works.
Well, and again, it's not even not doing their job. Their job is to figure it out. And sometimes figuring it out does take time, but they have to be willing to understand that if they choose to not fully fund something, that their job is to keep going until they finally do. Like there's no vacation time when your one major job, which is the budget, is not done. But yes, yeah. All right, I think I'm just gonna call it just because he's right outside the door and he's finishing up out there, and I'd rather let him finish, especially since I'm coming back on tonight. Guys, thanks for hanging out. Please follow over here if you don't. Watch
Come
all
on,
the videos.
Zeus. Good boy. Come on.
Please go over and follow over on the tube as well. Please watch the videos over there. There's lots of good videos coming up that there's lots of videos that I'm posting every single day over there that we need to watch. We need to help get these people visibility and name recognition. That's how we get the change that we keep talking about. So please go over and watch everything over there, please. And I'll see you tonight, 6 p.m. You guys are amazing, just the way you are, and I love y'all very much. Stay safe, stay healthy. Remember to sing, laugh, dance, smile, do something that makes you happy. And again, please, please, please be here tonight, 6 p.m. Eastern. Bye, guys.